Harbor Computer Services owner Amy Babinchak is here to talk about Microsoft's new channel chief, Datto's new quoting solution, mastering virtual sales calls, and more. Plus, a special guest interview with SYNNEX Senior VP of Marketing, Bob Stegner, on the merger, the market, and more. It's ChannelPro Weekly, number 182, Hostage Video. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 182. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this show for you. And who are you? You are the VARs, you are the IT integrators, you're the managed services providers, you're the managed security services providers. Long short of it, if your title's got a lot of acronyms in it, you're probably in the right place. If you are a ticket taker at the movie theater, assuming your movie theater is still open, you know what? We welcome you anyway. You might learn a few things and get a better job down the road. So welcome to you one and all. Joining me this week and most weeks is my co-host of this fine program, the man of the hour, the man who almost didn't let me come back after running the show solo a couple weeks ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Freeman, executive editor of ChannelPro.
Oh, no, to the contrary, Matt. I am back in the passenger seat and loving it.
It was good. I sat down and I'm like, I don't even remember how to do this. It's been 2 weeks since I've done one of these. But you did a great job running the show solo that week. Was it kind of weird? Because that was like the first one that I've ever not been here for.
Yeah, well, and what was it? Episode 181 or something like that? Yeah, I mean, it was the first time I've ever and you know, there we had a co-host, guest host on the show, but I was sort of representing the ChannelPro team on there. So it left me, Matt, with a new appreciation for what you do in terms of steering the ship here. It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I appreciate that, but fret not. It's only a matter of time before I steer this ship right off the edge of the ocean and kill us all. But until then, let's just enjoy it while it lasts. But you know what, Rich? I'm also excited to say that even though you were solo, but you still had a guest. Now we're both here, but we still have a guest. And that's what makes this show great, is that we bring all of these awesome people from the industry and we get them on here to talk about us and laugh and have a good time. It's just awesome. And so our guest host today is the owner of not one, but 3 IT related businesses: Harbor Computer Services, Third Tier, and Sell My MSP. She's been working in a small and medium business IT field for more than 20 years. She's also been a Microsoft MVP for 16 years, received numerous leadership awards, and is a valued member of various boards guiding business growth, acquisitions, and partnerships. She's also been part of many of our ChannelPro events that we've done, both in person and online, if memory serves correctly. So please welcome, at long last on the show, Amy Babinchak.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, guys. First time on the podcast. It's going to be fun.
I'm really excited to have you here. I kind of gave everybody a little bit of overview about you, but if you can, tell us a little bit more about you and kind of what you do, how you got to where you are today.
Well, you know, I'm a technical person. So the first thing I did was, after a few years, you know, I went out and I started my own MSP, focusing on small business up in here in Michigan. No particular vertical, just a variety of different kinds of small businesses. And, you know, and then a few years later, I became a Microsoft MVP, which was an awesome honor, and it just keeps coming. But that sort of, you know, necessitated the need, or brought forth the need that people are looking for good quality Microsoft support services. And yeah, I'm just sort of very much a community person. So that's the kind of the niche that Third Tier serves, right? We help other MSPs get over technical problems. Lately, I'm running a couple of courses over there to help people understand that they can make more money than they ever made on infrastructure replacements through, you know, small projects in Microsoft 365, just using things you're already selling to your clients. And I did some calculations and found out that in my own MSP, we're making about 44% more from each client by not replacing infrastructure, you know, in just doing cloud things. So of those same customers. So it's a great opportunity. I know some folks are reluctant, so I put together some courses to show them how to do what we're already successful doing in my MSP. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that I just really enjoy the IT community, and I like helping other people out, and I have knowledge to share. I'm happy to share it. Whoever wants to listen to what I have to say, I'm happy to, give it all away and help make our industry more successful. I think it behooves us all if everyone is doing better than they were doing last year.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the businesses that you run that I find kind of interesting is the Sell My MSP business, and we've had you in our events to talk about that. What made you focus in on that so much as that you have?
Well, one day I was talking with Rian Buccianico, who's been on your events a lot recently.
Mhm.
And, she and I were chatting, and we realized that we had both identified the same problem. And that is that smaller end of the MSP market was getting left out of the merger and acquisition space. And, it's like, oh, if your business isn't worth a couple $1,000,000, then, nobody wants to talk to you. And they were just, that was the word on the street, right? And they were just deciding to fade away or fold because, oh, who would want my little business? Well, it turns out lots of people want your own little business. And, if you have a nice book of business and you've been in business for 20 years, it doesn't matter how big your business is. It's that if you have a quality business that makes profit, there is a buyer out there for you. And we just want to connect the sellers with the buyers, and make it easier for the low end of the market not to get left out of those opportunities.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, especially the word on the street that you saw. I saw a word written on the street the other day, but it was not one that I could say here on the podcast. Not very appropriate. You must live in a nicer area, I suppose. Or at least one that's a little bit more business oriented.
I
So
also like the words on the street where they're actually pictures. I enjoy photos as I, drawings as I walk along too. So
as long as the drawings are nice, I've
yeah.
seen a lot of drawings that I don't think are very nice on the street
Yeah,
too.
you might need to consider moving. We're kind of getting the picture now of your neighborhood.
Oh, I'm teasing. I actually live in a very small rural area, but I'm talking more from Rich's perspective.
So there's just
Yeah.
that one guy in your neighborhood then.
Yeah.
That one kid,
That one,
that
get off
one
my
guy.
lawn.
Awesome. So Amy, what beyond helping people sell businesses and running your other companies, what is it that you like to do for fun? How do you spend your time?
Oh my God, I have so many hobbies. I love to do stuff. So I go hiking. I love to travel. I have a sailboat. I have a pretty big garden. What else do I do? I've been taking some photography classes recently, kind of getting back into that now that, we all have these cameras in our pocket. And so I was like, "Oh, I used to really enjoy photography, and then I kind of got away from it. And then, the whole transformation from like I used to develop my own film and do my own prints and have a little dark room and all that stuff. And then I was using my phone more and more and more. And it finally I, was like, this thing has so many features in it. It takes really decent pictures. So I've been taking some digital photography classes that specifically focus on mobile, and it's been fun.
Very cool. So tell me about your sailboat. Because that is a wide variety of interests, but
Yeah.
is it like a big sailboat? How is it like
It's
a
a big
little
sailboat.
dinghy with a sail on it? Like what
No,
is it?
it's a big sailboat. I have I grew up on the water, so I'm a what they call a water baby. Like my parents have pictures of me rowing my own dinghy at 3 years old alone. Right? I mean, I just grew up on and in the water all the time. And so what I always tell people, like I went to school at Michigan State, which is smack in the middle of Michigan. It's hard to get away from the lakes in Michigan, but Michigan State is as far as you can get away from the lake. And honestly, I felt like I was going to shrivel up and die because I had never been in such a dry place. It's like I was away from my boat. Parents buy their kids bicycles and stuff. My parents bought me boats. It's just ingrained in me. So I have a 36-foot sailboat. It's actually a ketch, which is the kind with two masts. And yeah, I get up there every weekend in the summer and sail around in northern Lake Huron and a little bit of Lake Superior generally.
Very cool. So more of a casual sailing experience. Do you do races or anything
I'm
like
not
that?
a racer. No, for me, it's a relaxation thing. It's like my cottage, right? I get in the car Thursday night and we drive up, and then we spend Friday and Saturday there and part of Sunday, and then we drive home, and so it's like a summer cottage.
Very cool. Go
The
ahead,
uh,
Rich.
the boat is actually, if I remember right, the boat is actually part of the origin story of Harbor Computer Services. That and I think before you were an MSP, you were consulting with some firm, and were doing well enough that you could get that boat. You just never had time to sail it. That's kind of why you went into business for yourself, partly.
Sort of. Yeah, I had a different sailboat at that time, but yeah, in my last job, one of the things that I negotiated into my contract was 3 weeks vacation that I could take in the summer to be able to sail. As the rest of the time I was on a plane flying from here to there and here to there, helping people with, when the engineer that was responsible for that job had screwed up, they would fly me in to fix the problem, meet with the client, right? Patch up the client relationship, patch up the technical problem, fly to the next thing. And yeah, I burned out pretty quickly on that after just a few years. And so quit that job, realized I had some clients on the side, because everywhere I would go, they would, it was working in schools at that time, putting together their first wide area networks, right? Connecting the district together. And so I would go there and they would say, I'd be working with teachers and stuff, and invariably one of them would say, "We know my brother has a business and he's got some problems with his Novell server. Do you think you'd be able to help him out?" Like, yeah, I'll go over there and take a look at it for him. And they all became clients. And so eventually I realized, like, I'm making as much money from these side people as I am from this business, and I don't have to travel anywhere. Forget that. Time to start my own thing and get rid of the job that has me flying all over the country.
Yeah, sounds like a no-brainer
Yeah,
at
it
that
was
point, man.
that's a high burnout job. I'm not a person that I enjoy travel. But I do not enjoy having a job that causes me to travel all the time. That wasn't for me. Some people thrive on that. I didn't.
I was say you just described Rich. That's like prior COVID. That was
Yeah,
him.
I know. And you guys have Joel, like he lives for travel. So
Yeah, it's been very hard on him. We've talked about him a lot on the show, but yeah, he logs. He pre-COVID, he logged more hours than in a plane
yeah,
than anybody I knew, other than
yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
pilots.
see, and
Like,
and he's always happy, and he's go go go, and that's what he enjoys doing. And for me, it just killed me.
I can imagine. Well, awesome stuff. I'm glad you're here. Unfortunately, we're gonna move on to news here, but I'm hoping if there's some time towards the end of the show, maybe play a little bit of 5 questions with Amy Rich if we get a chance to learn a little bit more about her. But I want to say thank you for being here and for joining us for the show. It's going to be great, a lot of fun, a lot to cover. So we got Microsoft news coming up. We got Datto in the news. We're going to talk about 2 different stories from the website. One about virtual sales calls and healthcare and IT in the COVID and post-COVID area. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of info. Strap in, because here we go. Rich, Microsoft fired somebody and then hired somebody else, I think is the general gist of the story.
Well,
What
not
happened?
exactly. Let's be careful about this. There has been a change of leadership atop the Microsoft partner network. Their goal, the one commercial partner organization at Microsoft. So Gabriella Schuster, who has been running one commercial partner since it adopted that name. She's been the channel chief at Microsoft for about 7 years at this point. She announced this was last week, actually. Time all runs together these days. But last week she announced that she would be stepping down at the end of the Microsoft's fiscal year, and she will be replaced by a gentleman named Rodney Clark, who I've had an opportunity to speak with a little bit because he was in a very strategic role in relation to their IoT business, and we've been focused a lot on IoT at ChannelPro in the last few years here. So in the world of the Microsoft channel, it's kind of a big deal when the leadership of the partner program turns over, or at least it certainly used to be. And part of why I wanted to bring this up is to take advantage of the fact that Amy is with us here today. You mentioned before, Amy, you're a Microsoft MVP. You should probably explain to folks a little bit about what that is and what that's about. But I mean, you are plugged in at Microsoft and the Microsoft partner program. And so I'm curious to know, I guess, first of all, just, what were your thoughts when you heard that there's going to be a new channel chief, but also just how big a deal is that these days for Microsoft partners when a new leader steps into that role?
It is a big deal. So Gabriella had been in that role for quite some time, and I think she did more to modernize that program than the people before her. She really made a lot of changes. And, there was, of course, griping. Anytime there's change, people start to gripe about the change. But I think they were very productive and moved the partner program more into the cloud area and focused its energies on building cloud sales and helping partners make that transition. I know that my MSP, which is small, we have 5 techs, 7 people total. We make about 50 grand off of the spiffs and things from sales and that's on top of what the distributor's giving us for making those sales. In addition to that, for the first time ever, and I've been a Microsoft partner for the whole duration of the 21 years of my MSP, we're actually getting viable leads from the partner program. And we're getting that through their store lead program and through their direct lead program. That never happened before. So it's really pretty cool to actually see that working. For a lot of years, we would hear about that and we try to join in. Nothing ever happened. The last 2 years, it actually has happened for partners my size. And it's added significantly to our business. So when I heard that she was leaving, it makes me a little nervous because we're now getting a person in there that from his background looks like he may have a different focus.
And what kind of focus are you thinking? More of a product?
Well, yeah, he's coming from devices and IoT, perhaps more Azure, which I don't see a huge role for small MSPs like myself in Azure since we don't do development work. I guess my concern is that the program might lean more toward developers rather than MSPs and VARs. That's, I don't know, it's, yet to be determined. But when I look at his pedigree, I think to myself, I don't see myself there.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. He is a very very approachable, very personable executive. In my time with him, I think he's going to have a good time or be very effective at relationship building in the channel. It will be interesting to see how his outlook on running the partner program is maybe different from Gabriella's. And I'll touch on something that you touched on there too, which I think is important. That early in her tenure, she was, at the helm of the partner program when that giant, this was like circa 2017, when that giant change went into effect, which included the lead generation aspect of things that you're actually feeling the effects of now. That, what they call the co-sell motion at Microsoft, and the creation of these sort of customer-facing organizations that will connect end users, connect customers to Microsoft partners. It was a giant change within the program. It took a long time to roll out, and I personally don't know a whole lot of Microsoft partners right now who feel like that was a bad thing. I think there was, the transition may not have been immediate or smooth at all times, but I can't really think of too many people who have voiced dissatisfaction about how things work partnering with Microsoft these days, at least from that respect. I mean, you'll hear complaints about, margins on cloud products and so on. But just in terms of lead gen and working with account reps and stuff like that, it seems like post transition it's going reasonably well.
I would agree. Yep.
Well, good. It sounds like there may not be a whole lot to gripe about, which is too bad because griping is one of my favorite pastimes when there's any kind of change. So if you do discover anything to gripe about, let me know so I can do some extra griping with you.
Will do.
Appreciate that. All right. Well, we'll just have to see how that goes, and hopefully it goes well. That's what I'm hoping. Datto is in the news this week. Rich, they've launched a new solution. What do they launch?
And this too, this was last week as well. It's just our first opportunity to talk about it. Datto basically has added a quoting and e-commerce solution to its portfolio. So there are other companies in the space where Datto competes. Companies like ConnectWise, for example. They make ConnectWise sell. There's QuoteWorks. There is Channel Online. There are other companies out there with similar functionality, and the idea basically is they provide a portal that connects to a whole bunch of different distributors, collects product information from all those distributors so that you and your customers on a self-serve basis can kind of shop through all that stuff. You can build a quote, you can ship the quote out to the customer approves the quote, you can actually go ahead and put that order through and even handle billing. Now, this is not something that Datto is inventing, but now they have that capability as well as some of these other companies and some of their direct competitors out there. In terms of the differentiation, when you ask them why would somebody maybe theoretically use their product as opposed to one of these other ones, they really feel like they have a system that's maybe easier to use, that you can get from a blank page, if you will, to a quote that's ready to go in as little as 30 seconds under some circumstances, they say. The pricing, they won't talk about specific rates. Obviously, if you want to know exactly what it's going to cost you, you've got to call your Datto account rep up. But they described to me the prices as super low, very attractive. They're trying to work their way into the market. So that's something else that they think will be advantageous to them. I should say this is all the solution is based on technology that Datto acquired last summer when they purchased an ISV, a company called Glue, based in Australia. They've spent the time since July when that deal was announced, integrating the Glue product in with some of the other systems, the RMM, PSA system that Datto makes, and also sort of internationalizing it. Glue's system was really designed for channel partners in Australia. And they've also been scaling it up because they're thinking globally here and not just in terms of the Australian market anymore. But this is another case. So the bigger picture story here is this is part of Datto getting a little bit more aggressive, picking up the tempo a little bit in terms of growing the business since they went public late last summer, early last fall. They were last on the podcast. We were talking about them acquiring a company called BitDam, which makes threat detection software. And down the road, you're going to see a Datto security solution based on the BitDam technology. We know from prior presentations that they've made that they're working on a business continuity solution for workloads in Microsoft Azure. That will dovetail with the rest of their business continuity, disaster recovery kind of product. So in a reasonably short amount of time, you've really kind of seen the Datto portfolio expand in terms of the range of services that they sell to and through their MSP partners, and some more acquisition activity from them as well. And it's going to be interesting. I don't think that this growth spurt, if you will, that they're in right now is going to be letting up necessarily in the near future. So it's going to be something to watch in the next 6-12 months. Is what are the next few steps after that? Because in some regards, we're seeing more change from Datto in the last 6 months than we've seen in quite a while before that.
Do you think that this sounds like Datto moving in the direction of becoming an ecosystem, right? Where you could be, you could be a Datto partner and end up getting all of your products from Datto essentially, and have a nice, well-rounded, security focused, MSP out of it. That's kind of how I'm interpreting this. Like, you would come to Datto, buy your products, do your quotes, and is this a threat to distribution? That's what I'm wondering. Kaseya seems to be on that same path.
Yeah, very much so, and ConnectWise as well. I mean, that really is the vision for all the companies that play in that space. Kaseya, ConnectWise, Datto, and I almost said SolarWinds MSP. They are officially Enable now, but I mean, those would be the big four in that space. And yeah, it's very much the vision that they have all. And now Datto, took a little bit longer to begin doing this too, but they've all been adding security services, security offerings, and also widening the portfolio of other products that you can get from them, and creating the opportunity to standardize on that one company and all the different kinds of products they have that that they've integrated behind the scenes very closely. That's certainly the vision. I think they're all, they would love to convince MSPs that that's really something that they should take advantage of. At the same time, there are a lot of MSPs out there who prefer that kind of best of breed approach. And all of these companies are making a point of saying that we are not going to close the connections that we have with the other platforms, force anybody to standardize on our products. And that, that includes Datto and this commerce solution that we started this portion of the show talking about. That connects to the ConnectWise PSA system, just to take one example right now. And not only are they not, planning to shut that down at any time soon, they're going to be adding more connections to products from other suppliers. So yeah, it's very much the strategy of these companies to try to get to collect as much mind share, market share from an individual MSP as they can, while still remaining true to the vision of openness and giving people the flexibility to work with multiple vendors if they choose to.
Yeah, I think we're pretty safe to say though now, Datto, not just backup anymore.
That's for sure.
But that's what made them famous. But
yeah,
it's becoming not who they are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So Rich, I want to ask a couple questions about the commerce solution specifically, because there's other vendors that are focused just on the quoting and billing part of the process, right? Like QuoteWorks comes to mind,
for
right?
example. Yep.
So how do they feel like the Datto's new product, that it can look across not just Datto products, obviously, but you can buy anything through this, right? And quote anything.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, all of these products plug directly into the electronic catalogs of Tech Data and SYNNEX and Ingram and Arrow and D&H and all those companies. So pretty much anything that's available in IT is the idea. You should be able to find that through one of these tools.
And so was there any sense given on how their solution kind of stacks up to a little bit more established quoting solution that's been on the market for a lot longer?
Well, I mean, again, the things that they kind of highlighted is they feel like they've got maybe a usability advantage. That'll be in the eye of the beholder, something for people to check out. There, again, the pricing advantage, at least coming in as they're trying to gain share for that product. And then, and it goes right back to what we were just talking about is, they've got an RMM system, they've got a PSA system at Datto. And so at a source code level, they can begin tying all these things together exactly the way ConnectWise has done that with their ConnectWise Cell product. There are certain efficiencies and advantages that come with that. So, if you have standardized on other Datto products, that would certainly be something that would potentially make this product appealing too.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, there's a lot here to kind of dive into and look at, and get some links out for folks to go check it out. So, and as a reminder to those who are listening, if you want to follow along with what we're talking about, we've got links to all of these articles and stories that we're talking about in the show notes page for episode 182. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website to find that at. If you're watching on YouTube, open up the description area, and we got the links in there for you as well, so you can kind of read along, because we're kind of just covering these high level, and then you can go get all the rest of the detail in the articles there. So Rich, I want to move on. We've got a couple. That's it for the news, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a couple other stories we want to talk about. And one of them's real interesting because I guess I didn't connect them. I put in my head that like the sales process has changed a lot in the COVID area, or in the should I say the COVID times. So we've got an article out about mastering virtual sales calls. Tell us how that came to be and what that's about.
You know, it's a great example of a familiar phenomenon, I'm sure, to everybody who is listening or watching right now, which is just that when the pandemic came and when things kind of shut down and when all of a sudden everybody was working from home, we had to learn acquire a whole bunch of new skills, learn how to do things that we hadn't really done before and kind of do it on the fly. And one of those things is you couldn't sit down face to face with a sales candidate anymore and hold the sales meeting the way you used to. You had to connect with them on Zoom or Teams the way you were connecting with everybody else and figure out how to make that deal in that way. And you know, as we all know, offices are beginning and will continue to reopen over time. But I think almost universally the expectation is it's going to be a hybrid environment for the extended future in terms of people working from home as well as working from the office. So that the virtual sales meeting was something that people had to figure out in the last year, and it's going to play a role in their lives. If you're a ChannelPro, it's going to play a role in your life going forward as well. That's not going away, and it's different. You know, meeting with people, speaking with people, you know, via Teams and Zoom, and there are different skills involved in that, you know. And so we have an article about some of the challenges and some suggestions from that we got from some sales consultants, basically. And you know, one of the big challenges is you're not in the room, you can't really read somebody's body language. You're pretty much seeing them probably from the shoulders up. That's a little bit different. It's not, you know, you're not feeding off of or even just sort of registering, feeling the energy or lack of energy in the room. That's another thing where you're maybe not getting those cues that could be important to you before. You know, one of the things that these sales consultants we spoke to pointed out is just you've got to be, because you're not getting those same cues, you've got to be more sure than you might be if you're meeting face to face with somebody that you're communicating, you're on the same page. And I believe this was Gil Cargill we were speaking with, who said you really need to make a point of interrupting the conversation now and again to just double check. You know, I believe what I'm hearing you say is, you know, fill in the blank, or what I am saying to you here is fill in the blank. Does that sound right to you? You have to kind of check in with people and make sure you are actually communicating online as effectively as you might if you were sitting across from a desk. There are different communication skills in terms of things like eye contact and you know, voice modulation and volume and things like that. Both of the people we talked to suggested that you practice this some online. And one of the nice things about these platforms is you can record yourself very easily and see what you look like and see maybe what you can learn from that. And then, you know, the other thing, if you're sitting in somebody's office or conference room, you don't have to think about this very much, but you know, the setting the stage appropriately, professionally, for a virtual sales call is an important thing to think about as well. And that's not just, you know, what you're wearing, but, you know, what is your backdrop? Is the lighting good? What do you look like? What do you sound like? Et cetera. You know, putting a little time into making sure that you're making a good impression in all those ways actually will pay off a great deal in a virtual sales call.
Interesting. Amy, have you picked up any interesting tips about doing virtual sales meetings? Because I'm sure you've had to do.
Oh yeah,
many of them
and
at this
you know
point.
what I was gonna comment from Rich's, you know, pay attention to what you look like online. It doesn't have to be daunting. I tell you, attending a lot of these online conferences and doing a lot of online meetings, like if you're not using the you know, if you have a camera attached to your laptop, or your desktop, rather than using the one that's maybe built into it. It's not real great, and you're, sitting with a window behind you, or maybe just a blank white wall. I mean, you can look pretty terrible, right? If you just make a tiny amount of effort, like, put on a decent shirt, buy yourself a $39 camera that, that looks, that makes you look pretty decent, put something in the background of interest, or, just not the blank white wall, not a window so that you're all faded out. It's a small amount of effort goes a long way in making that presentation. Doesn't have to be super fancy. It just has to not be lousy, right?
Yeah, well, Mike Schmidtman was another one of the sales consultants we spoke with for this article, and he said, a lot of these sales calls, these virtual sales calls, look like hostage videos. It's like all you got to do is clear that bar, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a low bar, right? Just, yeah, don't look like a hostage video, and you'll do okay. Because ultimately it's about you and what you're saying to the customer. Now, we found that we had to actually change our sales strategy, because our sales strategy, unlike the one you described, which is more the traditional salesperson going out to meet with almost cold call clients, right? Trying to generate that sale. Ours was event based, which was also a problem because we couldn't invite people to events. And we ultimately decided that we also couldn't just turn that into an online event, because the thing that made our event successful at generating new business for us is that we had existing clients and potential clients in the same room. And that as we were giving and it was educational rather than sales pitch. So we would invite our potential clients to an educational event. And then as they were in the room, they would realize that they're in the room with people that are already our clients. And right, our clients are coming to these events, and these people probably already have a relationship with another firm, right? And so that starts to turn the wheels in their head of, I've never been invited to an event like this by the firm that we have now, and at the coffee pot, over lunch or whatever, they're intermingling with people that are already our clients. Who's a better salesperson than a happy customer? And so we couldn't just turn that into an online event, because in an online event, you don't have that same kind of interaction. So we didn't think it would convert people the same way that an in-person event did. What we ended up doing instead was shrinking it. So instead of having 50 or 100 people in the room, we would have 10 people in a room. Again, some clients, some prospects, and we would invite them to a problem-focused roundtable meeting. And in that roundtable meeting, they would say, all right, today's topic is, we're going to be here for an hour. We're going to talk about, how to manage people that are working remotely, right? So all you micromanagers out there, get some tips on how to manage people. And we would have our clients give the presentation. It's like, so we ones that were successful, we'd invite a couple and say, hey, can you talk to 5 minutes? We've got some other clients that are really struggling with how to manage their people. Could you come and just talk for 5 minutes about one thing that works for you? And they were all willing to do it, because everybody's in this same COVID boat and they wanted to help out. And so that's how we ended up transitioning our events. Again, that small, intimate meeting where we went around the table and everybody talked, and also made it clear that some of these people were already our clients and they weren't yet. That's how we kind of translated that message, and that seemed to work for us too. But yeah, everybody's had to change their sales strategy for sure.
So one other question that I wanted to ask you, Amy, is when I hear about virtual sales meetings, there's been a lot of talk, especially over the last year, about like Zoom fatigue and all of this fatigue about doing video conferencing and all of these calls and meetings. Has that made it even harder to do virtual sales meetings because everyone just doesn't want to get on another video call?
You don't want to get on a video call with someone you don't know, who you may not have a purpose for being there, right? So I think creating the purpose. Someone needs to come to this meeting. They need to have a chat with you, right? I think that's an important pre-sales item.
Well, maybe that's where turning it into a hostage call might actually make more sense, because then they would have a reason to sit down and
Yeah, you
have
gotta,
that with
it
you.
takes some more people though. You have to have somebody in that potential customer who will tie them to the chair. But once you've overcome that hurdle, yeah, you're in.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta, I guess, someone you need to staff, someone who can do the deed, and then you can show proof of life, and then you can go ahead and
There's,
have your virtual
yeah,
sales
but I
meeting.
mean, these days it's easy to come by those people. There's a lot of out of work bouncers currently. Bars are closed, so it's doable.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Hey, you might make a good buck or two with those. Who needs to sell services? You could just go into organized crime. All right, Rich, we have one other story that we want to get to before we head into our interview, and that is a story on healthcare IT in the COVID and post-COVID era. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the story?
In some ways, the setup on this is a little bit similar, isn't it? In that the healthcare IT world changed so much in the last 12 months as a result of the pandemic. The rise of telehealth, for example, was it's one of these technologies that the medical profession was essentially resisting. Until suddenly they really had to resort to it, to begin using it if they were going to be able to keep in touch with a lot of their patients. And so there was a lot of they hit the fast forward button in healthcare technology definitely in this last year. And it's another area where none of this is going away, and so the healthcare IT opportunity has grown and changed in the last year, and there is continued opportunity going forward there, and telehealth is a big part of that. There is telehealth in terms of the healthcare providers connecting to patients, but also to the extent that healthcare organizations of various kinds are, like everybody else, combining on-site and work from home kinds of environments. There's also been a lot of spending around connecting the hybrid organization, the hybrid healthcare organization of that kind. And so, we have an article in the most recent issue of ChannelPro that kind of talks about all this. You hear healthcare, and certainly a lot of the spending has happened in hospitals, but think beyond that as well to the health insurance companies that are dealing with the doctors and the physician practices, physician practice groups, assisted living facilities, long-term care facilities. There are actually a lot of different branches of the healthcare profession that are all investing in technology to a greater extent right now, and it's a much wider range of technologies that they're investing in beyond telehealth. There are healthcare wearables. There's patient mobile apps. All sorts of IoT or IOMT, as it's sometimes referred to, the Internet of Medical Things. A lot of different realms of technology and IT that we're seeing growth in right now. And then, no surprise, perhaps, because this is true of pretty much any vertical that you talk about, but security. These organizations are all bound by the HIPAA regulation. So to the extent that they are doing more business in the cloud, they're engaging more in telehealth, they've really got to be that much more conscious about protecting regulated healthcare information. And we've very much seen ransomware authors, practitioners going after healthcare companies right now, precisely because if you can take one of those companies down, they are likely to pay because they can't afford to be down. And so, huge opportunity ongoing around security and security solutions for the medical profession. Beyond that, I guess the last thing I'll just say is this is true of any vertical that you might specialize in. You've got to get to know who the decision makers are. You've got to understand kind of what makes them tick in healthcare. A lot of the time, you're not going to be dealing with IT people so much as people more from the medical side of the house. They're the ones who tend to drive the technology innovation within the organization. They are often, I imagine this is less and less true over time, but they can be a little resistant to change, a little cautious. about embracing technology, and telehealth again is a good example of that. A lot of doctors wanted nothing to do with that until last year. So there's definitely some time that you need to spend learning the people and learning the lingo and so on before you can really kind of be focusing in the ChannelPro magazine on education in an upcoming issue as well. Those are two particularly good examples of vertical industries that have changed a lot in 12 months, and in the course of doing that, have opened up a lot of new opportunities for our readers.
So Rich, there's a lot here to cover and to dive into, and I think probably the best thing to do would be to point everybody to the article so they can read through here, because there's quite a lot of information. But Amy, I want to give you a chance to comment, because do you do a lot of business with healthcare and IT? Are you afraid that there's now yet another acronym you need to learn?
Yeah, I do not do a lot of business in healthcare IT. I'm a consumer, but I don't see us going into that field in my MSP. Not every vertical is a great fit for every person. And, I made the decision some time back that wasn't going to be a great fit for my MSP. As a consumer, though, this past year, I love telehealth. I had the best 5-minute experience. It was like, I had a bout with allergies and ended up with a sinus infection. And I just I'm going to try this telehealth thing. And I clicked the button to connect, and it was like, here's the problem I'm having. It was an allergy thing. It seems to have gone into a sinus infection. It's been like 3 weeks now. I give up. I need something. And he's like, okay, I'll write the script. See you. Bye. I was like, this rocks. I want to do this all the time. I never want to go back into the doctor's office.
There's sometimes it makes sense. There's sometimes it doesn't make sense, though. Like my wife had to have something looked at, and it was like they literally needed to look inside of her ear, and they're like trying to schedule a telehealth thing, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Like stick the phone to your ear? Or like that doesn't make any sense, So, but I agree. First, a lot of things it is very, very nice. So that's cool. Well, Rich, I think this is a good time to take a break, and we've got an awesome interview coming up with Bob Stegner from SYNNEX. We've got a lot to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun. Amy will be with us with that, so stick around. We will be back in a second. And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. We got an amazing guest interview lineup for you today. So news broke a few weeks ago that 2 already large distributors, Tech Data and SYNNEX, were going to merge into one, making it like a mega super distributor. Our guest today might know a little bit more about that, but one thing he does know about for sure is the SMB tech market, distributor communities like Varnex, and channel marketing programs. Please welcome the Senior Vice President of Marketing for North America at SYNNEX, Bob Stegner. Welcome, Bob.
Oh, thank you for having me here. This is great.
Great having you on. If you can you tell us a little bit about you and kind of what you do at SYNNEX?
Well, I joined SYNNEX about 14 years ago. Prior to that, I was at another distributor. I think that narrows it down to Ingram. Spent 13 years at Ingram Micro. Then I came over to SYNNEX. I really enjoyed my time here, but I came over to take over the marketing, specifically North American. So we've done a lot of things. It's been a great ride so far. As you see, we've just made another announcement. This isn't our first one. While I was there, we purchased New Age Electronics, which is our retail division, which is here in Southern California. And then not long ago, we purchased Westcon Comstore, which was out in Louisville, Colorado. So I've done a lot of things like this so far, and looking forward to the merger with us and Tech Data. I have a lot of good friends at Tech Data. Unfortunately, I just can't talk to them right now. So if they're listening, hey guys, how you doing?
Excellent. I'm looking behind you and I see like a football helmet, and I see, what is that? Is that a Hawkeyes statue? What's all that about?
Well, no, I'm a Ohio State fan, which I got to be honest with you. When your office is in Greenville, South Carolina, and you're an Ohio State fan with all those Clemson people, it's a difficult situation. We finally beat them. We were 0-4 against the Clemson guys. And it's kind of funny. I heard from all those guys when they beat us, but when we kind of pounded them in the college playoffs this year, I didn't hear from many of them.
So other than following college football, what else do you like to do?
Like to golf. I'm very fortunate that is that we're one of those fortunate people who have two homes. We have the one out here in Southern California in Orange County. So I can play golf 365 days a year here. And then down in South Carolina, we have a place down there where I belong to Thornblade Country Club. I can sneak over there. Now, for anybody from SYNNEX that might be listening to this, I only play on my own personal time. I never sneak out of the office. And that's the story I'm sticking to.
Yeah, we all buy that. Sure. Any courses in that area that are your kind of favorite or that you would recommend?
Well, there's some great courses down there in South Carolina. I belong to Thornblade, but the Cliffs has great ones. Greenville Country Club's great. And out here in Southern California, there are just so many. It's difficult. You know, you can jump in your car and be down and play Torrey Pines in an hour. I belong to a private club here called Mission Vale Country Club, which if anybody was watching the Masters, they might have seen the special on Mark O'Mara right before the Masters. And his father was the original president of our country club, and Mark spends a lot of time there when he's not in Orlando.
So are you good? What's your I'm not a big golfer, so I'm trying to remember the terminology. Like, what's your handicap? I think is what you're supposed to
My
ask.
handicap is my golf clubs. Other than that, no, I play pretty well. I'm not great because I'm always working too hard. Once again, another story I'm sticking to. Working too hard. I just don't, really, quite frankly, with the pandemic, you think you would get a little more time. But I think that one of the things that I've seen happen with the pandemic, quite frankly, people work a lot harder because you're working out of your home, and sometimes it's hard to separate church and state. You sit here, start working, you forget to go to lunch or whatever, and it's a lot more different. So I just don't get to go out and play that much anymore.
Rich, do you golf at all? I'm not really sure that I've ever asked you that question.
Yeah. I mean, I have a set of clubs that I literally acquired at a thrift shop. And I have been known to swing them at golf balls, but yeah, I don't know if that counts as golfing. Just barely, I guess, is the answer to that.
Well, Rich, we'll have to go out sometime. Want to play for money?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
So Rich, why don't I throw it over to you to kind of set up the dialogue here, because I know we want to talk a little bit about the merger from Tech Data and SYNNEX and a couple other things. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is the obvious place to get started, and I think everybody understands there's only so much that you can say at this point. The intention for this merger to happen has been announced, but there's a whole kind of approval process that's ongoing right now. So, not a whole lot that you can get into in terms of detail, but I mean, for the benefit of the folks who are listening or watching right now and who are wondering, how will combining Tech Data with SYNNEX benefit them? What would you tell them? Assuming the deal comes together the way everybody intends, what's sort of in it for partners?
Well, Rich, the way I look at this is an exciting time for not only SYNNEX and Tech Data, but it's an exciting time for the resellers and the vendors. As you mentioned, there's not much I can talk about right now. We have some regulatory things that have to be done. We have to get approval, and I believe it's 8 countries off the top of my head. Then we have to get approval, SEC. We don't foresee any issues. And then our shareholders have to vote on it. So we've got some time to do this. In the meantime, as you know, in the meantime, right now, we're still fierce competitors, and we'll continue that way. And then at some point, the families will be blended together, and we're looking forward to it. But I think from my standpoint, some of the real pluses for the customers is right now, the overlap is not that big. If you really look at it, and I always like to use a couple examples of countries. If you look at Japan, we're in Japan, they're not. We're in Latin America, they're not. They're in Europe, we're not. And so I think that's a really important thing is if you look at even from the country standpoints, it's one-stop shopping between the two of us when we look at that. The customer set, don't know all their customers or anything. I do know that we had a third party look at it because neither of us can see the other person's information. And then we just kind of found a few things that there's not a lot of overlap on some of that, as well as with the vendors. They have some vendors we don't. We have some vendors same way that they don't have. So I kind of look at that is now if I'm a reseller and I have a relationship with a tech data salesperson or a SYNNEX salesperson, I've just expanded my line card, which is good for my company because I can still deal with the same person, but also I can get additional products now.
And that it was actually the next question I was going to ask in terms of dealing with the same person. So, obviously, anytime a deal like this happens, people get worried about disruption, how it affects their relationship with either or both of these companies. I mean, what would you say to somebody who is concerned that after the merger, maybe they lose that relationship with somebody in one of these companies that they value?
Well, we're not that far yet, but I will tell you the customer relationship. I think everybody knows SYNNEX culture and philosophy. The customer is the most important person in this entire merger. I think that's going to be the key thing. But if I look at the people that work for each of us, we've got great people in Clearwater, Florida, and we got great people in Greenville, South Carolina. I think that I don't see any change in that. I like to use the example when people talk about that is currently we may have warehouses in the same place. However, if our warehouse is at 95% capacity and the tech data warehouse is at 90% capacity, what are you going to do? If anything down the road, you may combine them and you're still going to need all those people. So, I see a great opportunity for our internal people for growth. I think it opens up more career paths. You're going to find there's some phenomenal people down in Clearwater. There's some great people in Greenville. And I think as we work through this, we're going to have some great opportunities for all those folks.
One of the reasons we like having folks from distributors on the show is that there's really no other sort of place in the IT ecosystem that has a broader perspective on the market and all of the different segments of IT and so on. So just kind of a big, broad question for you. It's been obviously an eventful 12 months. What have you seen in the SMB technology world over the course of the last year? What has the market looked like? What trends have been maybe most impactful?
Well, it's funny, I'm a big SMB guy. My father was a small reseller. If he wasn't 92 years old in a nursing home, he'd still be out trying to sell computers and networking. But I've always had a fondness for them. So I kind of laugh a lot of this when I talk to a lot of the SMBs is they talk about, I'm talking about work from home. He goes, well, what's different? I work from home all the time because, some of these SMBs, that is their office. That's where they work from. So they've all had to adapt on that. Now, as you take the S's that them even work in their homes, but go up to the mid-size resellers, they've had to really work closely with their customers, their end users, to help people in their work from home. We have gone, I say this is I'm sure Tech Data has, as well as SYNNEX. We've had to really go above and beyond to try to help these people get all set up from work from home. In our case, our entire staff is still working from home. You're talking, around 12 to 13,000 people. Take out the warehouse people that do have to go in and are essential and so forth. But that's probably the biggest thing I've seen is the ability to work from home. And I think that's opened up some great opportunities for our reseller partners on working with banks, on working with any type of schools, anything of setting them up for work from home.
There was a lot of concern a year ago, especially about the economic impact of the pandemic. Perhaps hurting the SMB market, sales in the SMB market. I mean, how has SMB looked for SYNNEX in the last year?
Well, I think you see from our recent earnings and our past earnings from all last year, we had a very good year. But I don't want to downplay the fact that we got to remember this is a pandemic. It's not something you'll be proud of that, you're doing this well in a pandemic, but it's really helping people. And I think that's the key. The SMBs have been probably one of the key ones. We've helped them with additional financing. We've helped them with credit terms. We've got to keep those SMBs in business. They're the lifeblood of our business. So we do whatever we can to go above and beyond. If anything, we put more resources on them to help them And, payment terms is a big deal. They still have to take care of their end users, but sometimes the end user, he's in the same situation as, out here in Southern California, we've been shut down for how long? And so a lot of these smaller businesses have just tried to survive. So I look at a lot of things that we've done in that. And, they've just got to look at, what works for them, what's going to happen when the workforce goes back and when will that be? And we just have to be consistent on that and so forth.
Hey, so Amy, is that kind of the experience that you've had? Have you had to lean on distributors a little bit more over the last 12 months?
We were lucky not to have to do that, just because our client base turned out not to be greatly affected economically. What we did, lean on our distributors for was, oh my God, we need to order some things that we typically don't order, right? And of course, all the distributors, they ran out of a lot of things because everybody was doing the same. Like, we need lighting, we need cameras, we need more monitors, all that home setup stuff for the office. That was a real critical point. But I was, even though my business didn't have to take advantage of those extended terms and loan programs and things, I was so heartened to see that stuff was available. It was a real feel good for me. Like, we had the right partners in place that were really concerned about us.
So you got a lot of monitors and computers and cameras. Did you also stock up on like panini makers or single serve coffee makers?
We didn't, but we really would appreciate it if some of those people working from home would have stocked up on newer computers than what they pulled out of the dust off of their closets. Those 12-year-old Macs, oof, that was rough.
And maybe that's a good segue. We've been talking about what happened the last 12 months. We're now in this sort of transitional phase where vaccines are rolling out, and we're entering a different a portion of the story of this pandemic. As you look down the road at maybe the next 12 months, Bob, what do you expect? What do you foresee? For example, is the hardware business going to slow down? Everyone's kind of got what they need, or is there more going on there? What sort of expectations do you have for the next year?
Well, there's a couple things. Following up on what Amy was talking about, how would you like to own a plexiglass company right now? You weren't excited. You went from 0 to 1,000% more business you did before. But let's be real, virtual and hybrid is here to stay. And I think Amy would agree with this. Fact, our customers now on all sides, quite frankly, they've become pretty used to working on Teams or Zoom or WebEx, whatever. They're used to that now. From a selfish standpoint, in 2019, I did 241,000 miles on Delta Airlines. Last year, I did 18,000. I think the days of 241,000 miles are gone. So that's here to stay. So that's going to take some things. I think in schools, the Chromebooks, Amy, I'm sure you've had trouble getting Chromebooks. It's just the overwhelming request. Now, a lot of good things have come out of this. I like the fact that going forward, for instance, our events are going to be hybrid. We'll have probably some people there as time goes forward. We have canceled all our live events at least through September 1. After that, we'll take a look at it. So we may have some events that may only have, instead of 500 people, might have 250. But here's what I like about that. They'll also be streamed or hybrid with some virtual. So in Amy's case, she may decide to go to it live, but back home, she can have anybody on her staff following the same event that she's looking at. It's going to, quite frankly, cut her cost on travel and T&E. So I think that's important, but it's also given the opportunity for the people that don't attend the meeting to learn the same thing that Amy's learning there. And I think that's important. It's going to be a big deal to hear, say, the president of one of the large vendors speaking. You don't get that opportunity. That we didn't have that in the past unless you were at the event. Now you'd have the opportunity. You could either hear that person live and in person or go on. And I think what's going to happen now, following up on this a little more, Rich, is the companies, the customers that Amy and I deal with, they're going to have to decide what's best for them. Is it best to have, at this point, cut down on my real estate and just have half my people work at home, half people in? It's going to be a hard thing. I've always been a huge believer in people like to deal with people. And it's one thing people deal with people on Zoom or Teams, and it's another way to deal with people sitting across the desk. It's going to be a tough decision for a lot of these people because I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think you're going to be starting out and figuring out what is the best way for my company to succeed and what is best for my customers.
I think that's an excellent point. You know, for years, I would always say to my peers, why aren't you bringing your staff to these events, right? When I would go to events, I always brought myself and one other person, and we would kind of rotate around who got to go. And it was really a corporate benefit, right? They got to go out to a conference, which a lot of, you know, non-executive level folks don't do that. And it was something that they really valued. But now maybe we will see that happen more across the board. I know that, you know, for me, there's some, and I am a small MSP, you know, 7 people. For me to spend $5,000 or $7,000 to go to an event, that's pretty pricey, right? By the time I pay the ticket and the travel and, you know, meals and all that kind of stuff. So this past year in 2020, I went to some great events that I would never have attended in person because of that. So I'm really hoping this hybrid is here to stay. And I am glad to hear that that's what you're planning to do. And on the client side of thing, right, my customers, I do think that the home office is here to stay, right? Although they won't be in it 100% of the time, they do intend to keep those home offices and keep them going. So we just opened up a new market for SYNNEX and tech data, right? Everybody's going to need their office in the building, and they're now going to need the home office too. It's not just for, again, something that's just not for executive level. It's going to be for every worker now.
Well, and Amy mentioned her 7 employees. Think about Amy, if you would have asked them to attend to something, say 2 years ago, you said, hey, I'm going to go to this event. Why don't you go watch it virtually and see what I'm doing? It might have had the same effect. People are so used to it now. You know, as we sit here, I'm in my home office. I'm assuming you're in your home office. We're sitting here having this, we're used to it. So for you to now ask those people to join in, it's not going to be unnatural for them. They're going to say, oh yeah, this is what I'm kind of used to this. And it's going to have that opportunity that they're going to want to go and join in virtually versus half you making them do it.
Yeah, I will say I attended some horrible events in 2020 that made me feel like I wasn't there, that I wasn't a real participant. So I hope everybody learned from their 2020 event experience of how to engage that remote audience for better experience, because there was definitely a lot of learning that needed to happen.
Hey, Rick,
I'll point out,
Matt, I do want to touch base. She brings up a very, very good point. Is everybody, not just SYNNEX, not just tech data, everybody got caught off guard a little bit. We had been tinkering, you know, we had our toe in the water on virtual events, but you're talking about, I have 14 people on my events team. I had to get them to totally redo their job descriptions. They went from all they did was live events to learn on the fly. They were putting the plane together as they were flying it. They had to learn this, but over the years, that's why this becomes so important, is what we've learned. And Amy's spot on. Next week, I'm flying down to South Carolina because we have our Varnex fall conference, and we're doing it partially live. It'll still be a little virtual, but we're doing it live with no people. And so that's going to make it more natural for Amy and her team to see this, because it's basically going to be us on stage at the Greenville Convention Center, but delivering the messages out, and then it'll be recorded. You go back and look at it. So there's some changes we have to do, but to Amy's point, we had no choice but to learn how to do business differently. We had no choice.
Yeah, everybody was in that same boat. You know, where we were all learning a lot in 2020. I called that whole period the fast forward. right? It's not that we were suddenly slowing down and, oh, things are, that we're just waiting for things to get back to normal. Nah, everybody was pedal to the metal. Let's bring technology forward, do new things, and let's get going.
And so it's safe to point out, Amy, that when you were talking about bad events that you attended in 2020, you were not talking about
Of
a
course
ChannelPro
not.
event.
No, definitely not. All of the SYNNEX Tech Data events were awesome. All the ChannelPro events were awesome. These are other people.
See, Matt's a lot gutsier than me. I didn't ask the question because I didn't know the answer. Matt, I'm very impressed with you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we've got a few minutes left. I think it's a good thing to talk about is that SYNNEX has done these distributor communities, like Varnex in particular. How important has that been over the last year for partners to be involved with? And what kind of benefits can that bring, especially in times like?
Well, I think right now probably is one of those important times to be a Varnex member, or in the case of Tech Data, Tech Select member, to give you a peer to lean on. Years ago, I remember when I was at that other company, is that the business was really bad. The economy had tanked and everything. And I got up in front on stage. I told people, I said, we're having the same struggles you have, but we just have a lot more zeros behind ours. The second thing is, in this community, I encourage them to go talk to 5 people. Before you leave this building, go talk to 5 people. You're going to feel better because you're going to find at least two people that have it worse than you, and you're going to feel great. And I think that's what's happened is 2 things. One, they're able to reach out to each other on a personal level because they've met them at events, do different activities that the Varnex people have done, and they can reach out. We've done a lot of roundtables. We brought in speakers for them to give them advice, whether it be from a financial side, whether it be from different kinds of networking and some of our solves, but allows them to really lean on that. I think that's really important, is you need to be able to have people that you can trust. The second thing is on this work from home and some of the others, where a real advantage come up is where all of a sudden I have a customer and I'm based in, I always like to use Des Moines, Iowa, but that guy has also offices in Cedar Rapids. He has some in Chicago. He has some. I now have a partner that I can work with to help to get that offices people set up for work from home. And that's something that's really important. That's one of the big things I think that distribution offers is if Amy has an issue, a lot of times we can find her someone that we can both trust in another market to help her accomplish her goals for her end user.
Bob, we've spoken about this before, but I mean, for somebody who is maybe participating in a distributor community like Varnex, or new, joining that kind of a community, what's a piece of advice or two in terms of really getting maximum ROI from that opportunity?
Well, Rich, first of all, you don't join a community just to join a community. You join a community to gain knowledge and expertise that you may not have. So the way I look at it, it's a bottom line is you get out of it what you put into it. I end every one of my Varnex meetings the same way. You get out of Varnex what you put into it. If you join just to be able to go to, say, New Orleans or Las Vegas for a meeting, it's the wrong reason. To get the best ROI is to share IDs, work with the vendors that we put in front of you. If I'm in a certain market, the president of Lenovo is probably not going to fly into your market. But if you're at one of the meetings, you have the opportunity to meet face to face with the Lenovo president, that's a big deal. We try to put people out there that they can see. It's just like the SYNNEX executives. And we have a meeting, we have all the SYNNEX executives there. They'll meet with anybody, and they set that up. And so that just kind of gets down to it, really utilizing your peers for your ROI. Years ago, I remember when healthcare was the big thing. Everybody wanted to do healthcare. And I remember talking to a reseller and I go, oh, I see you're on all the breakout sessions for healthcare. Are you getting the healthcare market? He goes, yeah. I go, well, you have a lot of hospitals and doctors area? He goes, no, the nearest hospital is about 30 miles away. I said, well, why are you doing it? He goes, well, Larry's and his company's doing it over in this other city. And I said, well, that's not really the right reason to do it. You do things for what your own thing is. So you have to work with your peers decide what's best for you and your community, and then match that up. Because otherwise, the guy with the R is not going to get much ROI spending a lot of money to learn about healthcare, and the nearest hospital is 30 miles away working with another reseller.
There's another aspect to that too. You know, in some of those professional areas, and medical's a good one, they prefer to do business with companies that claim to be experts in medical or experts in legal or specialists in that area. You know, so when that big push was on, that's why I turned it down, actually, is because I'd have to create a little division of my company and I'd have to advertise in a different way than we do now. And it's a big commitment when you decide to go into a new vertical, really is.
Yeah. So, Bob, when you're talking about going in for the right reasons for return on investment, is a good reason to join a community would be like Subway coupons? Do they do Subway coupons?
Oh, I like that, but I'm a Jersey Mike's kind of guy, so I can't relate.
Because I'll join a community for a buy one get one free sub. Wouldn't you?
You know that's kind of funny is that they pay dues. I look at it as a public golf course and a private golf course. If you're paying dues, you better use it and utilize it. So I'm not doing very good on that right now because I'm paying dues at my club and not utilizing it. So I'm a bad example on that. But I think it's really important that if you join, you're right. It's not like you get a coupon. What you get is something that coupons don't buy, and that's additional knowledge and expertise from your peers.
And hopefully a sandwich along with it.
I'll make sure you get a sandwich.
I see it's lunchtime for me. I'm starving. I got sandwiches on the brain. I really appreciate you coming in. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So Bob, for anyone who wants to get in touch with you, reach out to you, where can they go? How can they find you?
Easy to get me, bobst@synnex.com. Anytime you need me, shoot me. I get right back to you.
Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Bob Stegner, the Senior Vice President of Marketing for North America at SYNNEX. Bob, thank you so much for being on. I hope you had a good time.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Hopefully we'll have you on again in the near future. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show with some of our regular end of the show features. Amy Babinchak will be with us on the other side. Stick around. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with part 3 here of ChannelPro Weekly. Rich, that was a great interview with Bob Stegner. I want to say thank you again to him for coming on and speaking with us. Any takeaways from that you'd want to highlight?
Other than the fact that my light has gone out here for those of you watching on.
I thought you were descending into an alternate universe or something.
Yeah. Well. This is going to be a treat for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Talk about hostage videos. You're seeing one right now here, basically. But, no, I mean, looking forward to, I guess what I come back to, we spoke before a little bit about telehealth. We spoke about virtual events with Bob, and it just, in both cases, what's really interesting to me is this idea that there were these technologies that people just kind of assumed wouldn't work, that we were forced to embrace anyway, and it turned out actually that they work reasonably well. And now they're going to be a permanent part of the landscape. So it's just interesting the way when we were kind of compelled to try out some of these things that they turned out to be more effective than we thought, and we've sort of advanced the art, if you will.
Absolutely, Amy. Anything you want to highlight from that interview?
I'm just going to kind of wait and see what happens. We're long-time tech data, so our preferred distributor. So I'm interested to see what the SYNNEX merger is gonna bring.
Yeah, unfortunately, Richard, we didn't have time. I was going to ask him what he thought the name was going to change to, because I can tell you if they change the name, there's a big opportunity out there, and it's not for who you think. There's a big opportunity for those who print stationery, because there's a lot of business cards that are going to need to get reprinted.
That is for sure. Yep.
So, all right. So, well, we got a few minutes here before we have to wrap. I think we could get in a quick round of 5 questions with Amy Babinchak. So Amy, we play a little game here on Channel Pro Weekly that we call 5 questions. And the whole premise of it is that Rich and I will ask you 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll go back and forth. And the gist is that we do not have these questions pre-written. We must think of them on the fly. And it could be about anything and everything. Generally not on topic, but there's nothing to no embarrassing things or no gotchas, anything like that, just to learn a little bit about you. Are you ready?
I'm ready I got my 5 answers ready.
All right. She doesn't even know what the questions are, and she's got
yeah,
her answers ready. Rich, question, or I should say hostage number 1. First question to you.
Yeah. With a gun to my head, question would be, what, and just so you know, I'm always the guy with the food question for whatever reason. I don't know why, but what is sort of the native delicacy of Michigan? What's the thing that the food that folks in Michigan, are most sort of emotionally attached to?
Emotionally attached to? Well, I think that we in the news, it seems like the media wants us to think that it's this hot dog rivalry between 2 downtown famous hot dog places. But the unique thing that Michigan has that you don't see elsewhere is we have a very large Arabic community. And so we have an amazing food scene from the Middle East here that is the best in the country. So if you come to Michigan, look for our Middle Eastern restaurants, because those are the hidden gems.
Very interesting. That sounds good. And as everybody knows, I'm hungry right now. So any food, talk about food is just making me hungrier. Okay, question number 2 to me. So we learned from Bob Stegner that Jersey Mike's is kind of like his go-to sub shop. So Amy, what is your go-to sub shop, and what is the ultimate sandwich?
This is another food question?
I just gotta ask.
My go-to sub shop is actually Potbelly, and I really love their mushroom melt. I think that's an awesome sandwich. Can't go wrong with mushrooms and cheese, and whatever else they want to put on is just an added bonus.
A woman after my own heart. Potbelly was also kind of my favorite. Although I can't have the mushroom one, but their roast beef is fantastic.
Yeah. Potbelly has the best bread. It's really their thing. Yeah.
And Killer Jardinara too. I don't know if you get the hot peppers, but their hot pepper mix is just to die for. All right, Rich, number 3 to you.
What is the worst storm, the worst weather you have ever sailed through?
So currently I have a 36-foot sailboat. And the reason I have that 36-foot sailboat is because so many times when I was on the Great Lakes, which for listeners that are not experienced with what the Great Lakes are, think ocean, right? They are freshwater inland seas is what they are. They bear no resemblance to whatever lake you have near you. They bear the most resemblance to an ocean. So I would be out on my 27-foot boat, 60, 90, 100 miles from the nearest land. And, a storm would kick up and I would think, man, this would be a lot easier in 10 more feet of boat. And so I finally got that 10 more feet of boat about 12 years ago. But the biggest thing I was in Lake Michigan, which is famous for its waves. I was standing in the back of my boat, and as I was, going along trying to sail to my destination, I looked up, and I had to look up at the waves, right? And then the back of the boat would shoot up in the air, and then we'd whoosh down the thing. And yeah, that was probably our most harrowing experience. We were never in any danger. The boat was handling it, but just fine. As we always say, the boat can take a lot more than the crew can.
Wow, that's a crazy story. Very, very cool. All right, so question number 4 to me. Let's say you got shipwrecked on an island in the middle of the Great Lakes. I don't know if there are any islands in the Great Lakes, but let's just pretend that there are.
Okay, there's a few.
And perfect. Okay, so you're shipwrecked there. You're the only one there, and you can only bring one movie to watch for the rest of your life. What movie is it?
Oh man, one movie for the rest of my life. I think it would have to be one of the Spider-Man movies. I like Spider-Man. I like superheroes. They're very entertaining, kind of lighthearted and funny. I think they would help pass the time.
So we're going Tobey Maguire era Spider-Man?
Yeah, we're going Tobey Maguire, kind of the more lighthearted, red-dressed Spider-Man instead of the, more macho Spider-Man. Is something fun and light, because probably if I'm marooned on an island by myself for the rest of my life, the other parts of my life are not that happy.
I have to assume the first or the second one, because if you say the third one, I'm going to seriously question your taste in movies.
Yeah, the third one's a little mushy. I agree.
Awesome. All right, Rich, I will be generous and give our hostage the last question. Go
ahead. Amy, if I remember right, gardening was one of the things that you like to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
I am going to give you a magical power. You can snap your fingers and do away with one garden pest that just drives you nuts. What is it?
The worst garden pest is the tomato hornworm. Those things they're like a green caterpillar, about 2-3 inches long, and they're big and fat, and and the only way to get rid of them is to pick them off and smash them, and it's just ugly because they're green on the outside and the inside, and they eat tomatoes and tomato plants, and ugh.
And you can't saute them and serve them with like a white sauce?
If you want to, I'll package them up and send them to you. You can let me know how that goes.
Yeah, I think I'll pass. Thanks. Fun stuff.
Maybe I could sell them to Survivor show. I just thought of that.
There you go.
They eat a lot of bugs on that show.
They do. They do. All right. Well, thank you so much for playing 5 questions. Always interesting to see where that goes and to learn about you and some of the interesting things that you think. And I never would have guessed that the movie to have forever was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. Probably the first one. That was the best one, I think. But that's a good one. I'm going to watch that one this weekend, because I haven't seen that in a long time. All right, Rich, I believe that's it. I do have a museum pick and a tech pick, but we're running really short on time, so I'm going to save this for next week. And don't worry, folks, it's a good one. You'll want to come back and check that out. But Rich, I do want to give you an opportunity to tell us what has been, what will be, and what the ransom is in order to get you out of this horrible situation you're in.
Well, in terms of what has been, a great way to catch up on that is to check out our In Case You Missed It post, which appears on ChannelProNetwork.com every Friday, catches you up on some of the news that, we didn't get a chance to talk to maybe here or talk about here on the podcast, write about extensively. NVIDIA is getting into data center processors, for example. Dell is spinning off VMware. And our own James Gaskin, who writes that column for us every week, is also going to be talking a little bit about a lesser-known crime wave involving Lego robbery. Now, coming up next week, we spoke with Bob Stegner about the spring meeting of their Varnex community. That's coming up next week. Intel Partner Connect, the annual Intel Partner meeting, is next week. D&H is doing one of their online Threadcast events as well. There's going to be a little more hardware news coming up for one of the big OEMs out there. And then I've got some stories. We spoke with Bob a little bit about tech data and SYNNEX. I've got interviews that I have done or I'm doing with Rich Hume, the future CEO of the combined companies there, and Michael Urban, who runs distribution worldwide from SYNNEX. We'll get some more insights on the future of those two companies and some articles that are coming up here. And the ransom, the thing to get me out, Matt, that would be for folks to tune into to next week's show, because we're going to have our buddy and Amy's buddy, Dave Seibert, on the show as our co-host for the first time in a little while here. He is an MSP in Southern California. He runs the SMB Tech Fest event series. And our interview guest next week is going to be Joe Contreras, who is the head of marketing for Epson Office Solutions in North America. And he's going to be talking with us a little bit about the print market, which is one of those markets that maybe in this age of cloud computing, people think is no longer all that relevant. And I think he will argue to the contrary.
A very reasonable ransom, Rich. I think we can make that happen and get you out of the situation you're in. Well, awesome stuff. Amy, I want to thank you specifically for coming on and being our guest host today. I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Glad you were here. For those who want to reach out to you and learn more about you or get in touch with you, where can they go? How can they do that?
Just shoot me an email, amy@thirdtier.net.
Perfect. Excellent. Awesome stuff. And I hope people go and check you out as well. And that's going to do it for episode 182. If I encourage everyone to go and subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly Podcast, everywhere podcasts are found, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, we're everywhere. Just go find us there. If you do like to watch, which can be fun, we're on YouTube. You can go to our channel there and subscribe as well. And of course, channelpronetwork.com is the website to go to each and every day. Set it as your homepage. There you'll find news, articles, white papers, downloads, resources, podcasts, anything and everything you need to know to help make your business better and to stay informed what's going on in the industry. And ChannelPro Network is Amy Babinchak approved. So definitely check that out as well. And with that, we're going to say goodbye, but we'll be back in episode 183. Like Rich said, see you all next week.